a guy named Dan Rader did an experiment that was given a Sigma 5 um, rating by Harvard University. And not only was it established that it is actually true that our consciousness can affect the outcome of subatomic experiments, but that people that have taken the time to develop their mind um, uh, were actually like experienced meditators were actually better. They had a higher statistical probability of influencing the outcome of an experiment. So there's certainly some basis for this. I just wanted to point out that in pop culture, spirituality, and the New Age movement and manifestation gurus, they're all selling you something that you want to hear, and there's far less to this than um, lots of people would have you believe, because it's really easy to sell someone the idea that whatever they think of can just appear. This is basically what religion has been doing in the Western world for several thousand years. No matter how much it doesn't work, people will continue to believe in it, which is not to say that it doesn't work to some extent. And it was also determined in that same experiment of Dan Rader's that if there's a group of people, the chances that consciousness can influence the material exponentially increases. So that's important to consider as well. If you have a group of people with the unified consciousness, they can cause changes to occur in conformity with will. Um, So, as a matter of fact, none but advanced mental alchemists have been able to attain the degree of power necessary to control the grosser physical conditions, such as the control of the elements of nature, the production or cessation of tempests, the production and cessation of earthquakes, and other great physical phenomena. But such men have existed and do exist today. And it's a matter of earnest belief to all advanced occultists of all schools that the masters exist and have powers. These powers, the best teachers assure their students, having had experiences which justify them in such belief and statements. These masters do not make public exhibitions of their powers. I've seen that happen, actually. We'll get to that in a second. So that's not always true, thankfully, but seek seclusion from crowds of men in order to better work their way along the path of attainment. We mention their existence at this point merely to call your attention to the fact that their power is entirely mental and operates along the lines of the higher mental transmutation under the Hermetic principle of mentalism. The universe is mental. Um, okay, so there's a few things that I have to point out here. One of them is why you know, some people have taken it like I'm trying to be negative or put other people's beliefs down by pointing out that the law of attraction and manifestation, all these kind of ideas, are seriously, seriously, seriously exaggerated by people that are selling the books. Because, you know, who doesn't want to believe this stuff? And so when people want to believe something, they will pay you to convince them, right? And so the reason that that is bad is that, you know, we already don't have enough respect in our culture in general for the office of the seer, the mystic, the magician, the shaman, good ones, real ones, right? And so we have this circumstance where, because people have not been taught the reverence and respect of, you know, a real mystic, a real spiritual master that is actually capable of having this kind of impact upon matter, for example, every, you know, housewife in New Jersey thinks that they can sit down and channel and manifest millions of dollars, and failure is usually not a deterrent in belief, right? It doesn't matter. You can fail all day long, and you just keep telling yourself that it'll happen eventually. And so it's not good, because, you know, you have people convincing themselves that they can do things before they can, and that is self-defeating, because it is possible that you could develop the skills to have that kind of impact, but without the proper reverence and the dedication, a lifelong study and commitment and development of willpower and discipline that is necessary in order to affect changes in your reality using nothing more than consciousness, you're going to have to be pretty advanced. And so, you know, just, you know, swallowing an amethyst crystal and burning some sage and then thinking that you're going to do these things is just, it's just silly. So, you know, we do need to learn about this stuff, and it is possible. And I've seen it myself. I actually saw a Hawaiian, I don't know what the proper title would be, because shaman isn't really correct, medicine man isn't really right, but he's sort of like the high priest of the islands. He's the top dog in Hawaiian spirituality. His name is Reynolds Kamakawiwaole or something. I mean, I'm butchering the last name, I'm sure, but you could find him. He's out there, and him and some other Native Americans came. Well, also indigenous from South America, Central America, and even some Asian people came to New Mexico in order to speak with us about these types of mental powers and also about the star tribes who they were saying that all of these tribes have been in contact with. I talk about this experience all the time because it was crazy as hell. And at that event, one of the things that happened is that this Reynolds person, we were doing a ritual, and he said, "May the wind blow to confirm the power of our prayers." And the wind blew so hard that gravel was blowing across the parking lot. So that was the first time that I ever witnessed anything like that very directly. And it was a public exhibition, so I would have to take issue with the author's claim that they don't ever do public exhibitions, because I've seen this happen within a group of, there were 12 of us, and there were other people sitting around watching. So I've seen this happen in groups. Also, anyone that's ever been to a really good Grateful Dead concert will tell you that the weather responds to large groups of people that are in a unified state of mind. And there are other circumstances like rain. I've seen an effective rain dance once as well at that same event. So, and there are also anthropological records of native people in the United States causing water to boil without any heat source and wind blowing. So I'm not alone in this. We actually do have quite a few people that have witnessed this sort of thing. Bullet point though, you don't just find out this is possible and then you can do it, which is what the New Age movement is selling everyone, and all these gurus are. So that's not how it works. Trust me. I can barely do this stuff, and I've devoted an entire lifetime to it. So, I mean, it's not like that. Don't pay anyone to try to convince you otherwise. But students and hermeticists of lesser degree than masters, the initiates and teachers, are able to freely work along the mental plane and mental transmutation. In fact, all that we call psychic phenomena, mental influence, mental science, new thought phenomena, etc., operates along the same general lines, for as there is but one principle involved, no matter by what name the phenomena be called. The student and practitioner of mental transmutation works along the mental plane, transmuting mental conditions, states, etc., into others according to various formulas, more or less efficacious. The various treatments, affirmations, denials, etc., of the schools of mental science are but formulas, often quite imperfect and unscientific, of the Hermetic art. The majority of modern practitioners are quite ignorant compared to the ancient masters, for they lack the fundamental knowledge upon which the work is based. This is also, one theory uh, um, of how the pyramids were built. That people that had developed the ability to interact with, it's not exactly overturning natural law, that can't happen, but that these blocks that the pyramid was built with were freed from gravity. A lot of people, Tesla, suggested that the technology either existed in the hands of the primitive people back then, or not that they were really that primitive, but I meant to say like hell a long time ago people, whatever, or that Pharaoh or whoever, Pharaoh's priest Ankh effing Khonsu or whoever it was, had developed the ability to use their mind to disassociate these blocks from gravity and move them into place while they were thus disassociated. And some have even speculated, could have just been me thinking, I guess, because I don't know where I got this from, but that the floating eye on the back of the triangle, or the eye on the triangle, the floating on the Great Seal symbol, that, and that Freemason was actually a reference to that they had freed their masonry from gravity and then thus were able to construct the pyramids. In fact, the precision that is demonstrated by the pyramids is kind of hard to imagine that it wasn't done in such a way. We still can't do it to this day, and I think that's very important to mention. By the way, speaking of very important, please support the channel. We're demonetized. We get no money for this. So please hit the like button, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon. Follow me over to Rumble. I've started moving all my stuff over there so I can speak on a platform censorship free. You can also support us with cryptocurrency and Zelle and PayPal and all that stuff. You can find it in the description. We really do appreciate it. Okay, so we're building pyramids with our minds here. Not only may the mental states, etc., of one's self be changed or transmuted by hermetic methods, but also the states of others may be and are constantly transmuted in the same way, usually unconsciously, but often consciously by some understanding of the laws and principles, in cases where the people affected are not informed of the principles of self protection. And more than this, as many students and practitioners of modern mental science know, every material condition, depending upon the minds of other people, may be changed or transmuted in accordance with the earnest desire, will, and treatments of person desiring change conditions of life. Now, that wasn't written very well, I don't think, but I believe that what he was saying is that the consciousness of a crowd can be affected by the sincere devotion and commitment of one individual who understands these things and does have that focus and commitment. And truth is self-substantiating. If you are truly aligned with the gestalt of the universal mind, if your actions are congruent with the universal well-being and have some kind of real utility in regards to moving the human race forwards, you will find that other people around you are sort of compulsively or subconsciously compelled to help you to act in accordance with your own will. Earlier in this book, he talks about how the masters can constrain the minds of others even to his uh, agenda. And the reality is that if you know about science, which is one of the prerequisites of understanding Hermeticism and any of the sort of secret doctrine style teachings, on understanding the most, Aleister Crowley, for example, had a secretary that he hired full time to keep an eye on scientific developments and keep him abreast of it every single day, right? Everything that happened in the realm of science, he wanted to know. And this is kind of contrary to what we think of when we think of people that are performing magic or that are mystics. There's a tendency to believe that people are, these people are anti-science and that science people are anti-mysticism. That is a huge travesty. But what I'm getting at here is that it's actually true that people of a more neutral or lower level, to put it bluntly, of consciousness cannot help but have their consciousness constrained to that of a higher order, especially if they're in close proximity with that higher cycle, because entrainment tells us that lower cycles entrain with higher cycles. And so it's not even that the adept has to think like, oh, I need to get control of the minds of these people. They can't help it. They will just entrain with his mind and they will do his will without even being aware. And hopefully it's a brother of the right hand path who is constraining their consciousness to his agenda. Other you may find yourself in a heap of shit, which is part of the explanation for what we see in the world today. It is true that a lot of the elites and a lot of the people that are in power today absolutely are aware of all of this stuff. They know these sciences and they totally will exploit them and have exploited them to their advantage. Another aspect of this transmutation idea and how you're using this knowledge in a way that is mental, but it has effects that are physical, is but it's about your understanding. For example, the pyramid is the most stable structure known, right? So, if you understand the Hermetic sciences, that if you build an economy based on the structure of the pyramid, it's going to have the same attributes in terms of stability that the physical pyramid does. And so this is the real, if you're trying to figure out how to use sacred geometry and like how is this stuff applicable in a pragmatic sense, in a real world sense, how do we use it? That's a tremendous example of how these geometric forms in the 3D world translate into utility in non-physical systems. Um, all of the same universal laws are governing everything, regardless of whether it's no matter what the system is. And also along the lines of actual utility for mental transmutation. Um, I feel like I should offer you a technique for achieving this. And transmuting states could include something like unaddicting yourself, right? Like my cigarette habit that I had since I was maybe 9 years old. The mastery of the breath uh, is one of the best entry points to the mastery of the mind. And there are so many reasons for this, but the mind works in symbolic language, and so mastering your breath, it is your life, and so it's symbolic of mastering every element of your life to master your breath. But then beyond that, there are biophysical elements to it, particularly in terms of your neurobiology. Um, Inundating the brain that's very malleable with oxygen allows it to, that's basically the fuel that it uses to build new neural pathways to achieve neurogenesis. And these altered states that come from inundating the brain with oxygen or depriving the brain of oxygen increase neuroplasticity. And so allows us to change habits and behaviors. And so if you combine enhanced neuroplasticity with neurogenesis, what you have is a more rapidly growing brain that's in a more malleable state. So what does that mean? You can transform habits in a couple of hours that have taken you a whole lifetime to acquire. And I've proven this to be true.